o'clock. Let's call the meeting to order. Everyone, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Any changes to the agenda anyone wants to make?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion by Josh, second by Kate. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Agenda's adopted. All right, we have some people to recognize. Jason Schoenbauer? There you are. I said your name right, didn't I? All right. Jason started with the City of Elko New Market in July 2019. Jason came to the city as a maintenance experience from the Shakopee, Mdewakanton, and Sioux community. Jason, thank you for your hard work and dedication to the City of Elko New Market and its citizens. We wish you the best in your future and your career. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, yeah, we do have them.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Craig, you got distracted. We have certificates for you. Thank you. Tara Schroeder couldn't be here, but we'd still like to recognize her. Tara was appointed to the Planning Commission on January 28th of 2021. And she, with her term expiring March 31st, 2023. During Tara's time on the commission, she was involved with reviewing several amendments to the city's zoning code, amendments to the city's comprehensive plan, and a review of several residential development plans, among other items. The City of Elko New Market recognizes Tara for her dedicated and valuable service to the citizens of the city. Emily Dornseif. There you are. Emily has served as a Parks Commission or Parks and Recreation Commissioner since March of 2014. Emily has brought energy and enthusiasm for starting new recreational programs, expanding existing ones, and has had a hand in nearly all the major park improvement projects in the city in the past 9 years. Emily has been involved in completing projects such as 2 new parks, the upgrade of neighborhood parks, the improvement of the skate park, a new hockey rink, a disc golf course, and nearly 5 miles of trails. Her dedication and the positive impact on Elko New Market's parks and trails will be enjoyed by residents for years to come. The City of Elko New Market recognizes and thanks Emily for her commitment to the Parks and Recreation Board and dedicated and valuable service to the city. We have some more folks we'd like to recognize for their years of service to the city. First, Bob Hanna. Where is he? Okay, maybe he's not here. Well, Bob has been a member of the department, the fire department, since 1992 as a firefighter first responder, along with serving as a council member. Bob has served as captain, training officer, and as part of the Fire Rescue Days Committee. The City of Elko New Market recognizes Bob for his dedicated and valuable 30 years of service to the citizens of the city and the rest of the fire district. Steve? I hope you're here because I'm going to totally mispronounce your name. All right. Schalwig. All right. I was going to go with that. Steve Schalwig has been a member of the department since 1997 as a firefighter and first responder. He serves on the Fire Rescue Days Committee and is currently a trustee on the Relief Board, and previously held the secretary and treasurer positions. The City of Elko New Market recognizes Steve for his dedicated and valuable 25 years of service to the citizens of the city and the rest of the fire district. Jay Simon. I thought I saw Jay. Okay. Jay has been a member of the department since 1997 as a firefighter first responder. Jay serves as the assistant fire chief and is part of the Fire Rescue Days Committee. The City of Elko New Market recognizes Jay for his dedicated and valuable 25 years of service to the city, to the citizens of the city and the rest of the fire district. Jacob Giles. Is Jacob here? There you go. Jacob, Jacob has been a member of the department since 2012 as a firefighter first responder. Jake serves as part of the Fire Rescue Days Committee, the Scholarship Committee, and as a gambling manager assistant. The City of Elko New Market recognizes Jake for his dedicated and valuable 10 years of service to the citizens of the city and the rest of the fire district. Joe Fritter. Joe started with the city of Elko New Market in October 2017. Joe is responsible for maintenance and repairs on all the city's vehicles and equipment. Joe has a vast background in the fleet operation and heavy truck repair. Joe is also a lieutenant in the fire department for Elko New Market. The City of Elko New Market recognizes Joe for his 5 years of dedicated and valuable service to the citizens of the city. Last and not least, Marty Deutsch. Marty started with the City of Elko New Market in June of 1987. Marty is responsible for all types of public works activities and is an asset to the department due to his vast knowledge of the city. Marty is the longest-serving public works employee of the City of Elko New Market. The City of Elko New Market recognizes Marty for his 35 years of dedicated and valuable service to the citizens of the city. Is there anyone here that cares to speak under public comment?
I can go.
All right, come on up. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is Paige Forsman, and I live at 26330 Thomas Avenue. Good evening, City Council members, and thank you for allowing me to speak today. I'm a high school senior, and I attend the School of Environmental Studies in Apple Valley. And today I'll be talking about why we should have an organic food waste compost. Yep, you have my slides. Okay. All right, so first of all, to clarify our terms, what is organic compost? It's defined as a mixture of decayed and organic material that can be used as fertilizer. So what can go into a compost? The main things that can go into it are fruits and vegetables, hard cheeses and butter, eggs, coffee grounds, meats, and a lot of other things. As a general rule of thumb, the things that come from a plant or an animal can go back into the soil. And then things that can't be composed are yard waste, plastic bags, pet waste, recyclable glass, plastic, metal, and milk. So why should we collect our food waste? If we had a compost, it would reduce the amount of waste going into landfills. According to the USDA, food waste accounts for 30 to 40% of the United States food supply, which means we're throwing about at least a third of our food away. And food scraps and garden waste, which are compostable, make up 28% of what's thrown away. And most of that waste comes from the consumer level, which is us. So that means about 119 billion pounds of food waste is produced each year in the United States. Having a compost would also help us reduce methane emissions. So when organic materials naturally decompose, it's called aerobic decomposition because it's exposed to oxygen when it breaks down. And on the other hand, in a landfill, when everything is compacted together, it's not exposed to oxygen, and when it breaks down, it produces methane, which is 25 times more potent than carbon dioxide, and that makes it a huge contributor to climate change. And the EPA estimates that more food waste is put in landfills than any other single material, and these landfills are the third largest human-related methane emitters. Elko New Market is part of Green Step Cities, and we have been on step 2 since 2016, so it may be time to take a couple more actions to help us go up to step 3 and beyond, and setting up a compost program would help us do so. Of best practices, best practice 22.5 is source-separated organics, which is a compost. We have made progress. Of the 8 practices in best practice number 22, we've done 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6, but not number 5, which is the compost. And this is a screenshot from the Green Step Cities website. We could have a level 1, 2, or 3 star organics program. Level 1 is just having an organic compost, and then level 3 has more specifics, like having a certain percent of residents and businesses participating in it. How to set up a city compost. People would collect their compost bins in their homes, and there are many different types of compost people can have. Some people may be concerned that it'll smell, but it won't smell any worse than a regular garbage can, so as long as you have a lid over it, you'll be good. And you would also need to have a certified compostable bag, or even just a paper bag is compostable. And then people could drop off their bags at the compost site. On the right there is a picture of a compost site in Dakota County. They have a really good and efficient program. And then there are some compostable bags on the left, which would hopefully be available at the compost site for people to use and take. And these are my sources. The picture at the bottom there is a link if you guys want to watch a 40-minute video that Dakota County made. And it's like about their program and how they run it, and it's a really good resource to learn more. And one more slide. All right, thank you for your time and allowing me to speak today. Please reach out with any questions or concern you have, and I would greatly appreciate if you would consider how a compost can affect our community and environment. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Anyone else care to speak under public comment? Come on up. Please state your name and.
That's a hard act to follow, though. I will say, my name's Rosalind Toussaint. I live at 4636 Cedar Lake Road in St. Louis Park, Minnesota. We actually do have a compost program in our city, and it's phenomenal. So I would kind of piggyback off of what Paige just shared with you. I today am here to talk about another resource we all love talking about these days, and that's water. So this right here represents all of the water on the planet Earth. This little container shows you all of the fresh water on planet Earth. Now, a lot of that is trapped in icebergs or is polluted. So this right here shows you the amount of potable fresh water that we have available on planet Earth. Pretty stark contrast. While, I certainly don't live in this community, and I do have a career in municipal government, so I'm definitely empathetic to the needs of a small but growing community for investment in economic development. I don't know that the Niagara bottling proposal is the way to achieve that. This sets a terrible precedent for our state. Having an out-of-state company come in, siphon off our greatest natural resource for profit. 310 million gallons of water a year would require 2.48 billion plastic bottles annually. So again, what this project is inevitably proposing would require 2.48 billion plastic bottles generated per year. Minnesota's unemployment rate is at a historic low. Expansion in bedroom communities is booming, so I really urge the City Council to reconsider alternatives for development in this community. I don't know that 2.48 billion plastic bottles is what Elko New Market wants to be associated with. So thank you for your time, and
Anyone else care to speak in their public comment? You're not getting up to speak? No? All right, with that, we'll close public comment. Anyone have any items on consent agenda they would like pulled?
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Second.
Motion by Josh, second by Kate, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Consent passes. All right, we have a couple oaths of office. Where's the, oh, you have it, all right. I state your name.
I, Dan West,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to support the Constitution
to support the Constitution
of the United States,
of the United States,
the Constitution
the Constitution
of the State of Minnesota,
of the State of Minnesota,
and to discharge faithfully
and to discharge faithfully
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of Parks and Recreation Commission
of Parks and Recreation Commission
of the City of Elko New Market,
of the City of Elko New Market,
Minnesota,
Minnesota,
to the best of my judgment
to the best of my judgment
and ability,
and ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Don? Oh. The room emptied out and I lost track of where everyone was. Ready?
Yep.
Okay. Raise your right hand. I state your name.
I, Dawn Burnham,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to support the Constitution
to support the Constitution
of the United States,
of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota, and to discharge faithfully
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of Parks and Recreation Commission
of Parks and Recreation Commission
of the City of Elko, New Market,
of the City of Elko, New Market,
Minnesota,
Minnesota,
to the best of my judgment
to the best of my judgment
and ability,
and ability,
so help me God.
so help me God. Thank you.
Mike. You know the drill, right? I state your name.
I, Mike Sutton,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
to support the Constitution
to support the Constitution
of the United States,
of the United States,
the Constitution
the Constitution
of the State of Minnesota,
of the State of Minnesota,
and to discharge faithfully
and to discharge faithfully
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of Parks and Recreation Commission
of Parks and Recreation Commission
of the City of Elko, New Market,
of the City of Elko, New Market,
Minnesota,
Minnesota,
to the best of my judgment
to the best of my judgment
and ability,
and ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to general business, as we have no public hearings tonight. And the first thing is the water supply plan.
City Engineer Rich Revering will review that item, Mr. Mayor.
Oh. Well, so you've had the requested updates in your packet. We've responded to some questions. The water supply plan is a document that's required by the DNR and the Met Council, typically done hand in hand with our comprehensive plan update every 10 years. So it is currently, we currently have a plan. It's valid and acceptable to the DNR and Met Council. The City Council asked us to update it considering potential large user and other issues as it got reviewed to try and reflect more current data. And so that has been completed and is in your packet. I presume the public has seen it as well through the council packets online. So rather than walk through, it's a lengthy document. I suggest I stand for any questions or participate in any discussion that you want to have.
Okay. I know I have questions. I wasn't sure if we were going to go through it, not necessarily page by page, but, well, might not be the worst idea to go through it in some degree.
I can give you a little more of an overview. The document, it's called a water supply plan. Its original title, when it was first started to be required of cities, and every city in the state has to prepare one that serves municipalities. It was called an emergency and conservation plan. So its real purpose is to identify, kind of how much water you expect to use, where it's going to go, what's your historic data, what's your projected data. It gets into things like what kind of improvements do you need to expect based on these projections, what kind of measures can you and will you take to try to reduce your average consumption for your residents and businesses over time. What are you going to do in the event of an emergency, kind of the priorities of who gets water first, second, third. So this spells out all of those things. As far as that last question, it's residential is first, and then goes down to non-essential uses, including commercial, industrial. And that's laid out in the table if you wanted to get into that. Ours is pretty typical. We've reviewed some other ones as we did this update. Similar issues. How do you manage to have people, use less water? What are the most effective methods? And they're all pretty similar. It's really what we've chosen to do, as you know, is focus on the cost of the water and escalating as people use more, especially for irrigation or non-essential purposes.
Okay.
So I
Well, we can,
get into specific sections if you like, but.
yeah, well, I know I have some questions. Josh has some questions. Kate, I'm not sure if you have
I just have
questions.
a clarification that I would like to state, but,
Do you want to go first then?
well, I can wait till we get down to it.
Well, I kind of have a general one, maybe
Go
before
ahead.
we get sections. So for my brain and maybe for others, how does this tie into, if at all, with like our significant user ordinance, significant user agreements when it comes to that? It seems like some pieces maybe are complementary to, or beef up, or maybe tackle different things, different pieces of like water usage, conservation, or, because even the turning on, turning off, or restrictions and stuff, it seems like there's pieces in a couple different documents. It seems like this would kind of tie some of it together, but maybe not capture it all. Is that a,
I think it captures it all, but it's maybe a little more general because its purpose is really a supporting document to the comp plan, information for the DNR and the Met Council. The ordinance is more, just has more teeth to it and more direct policy implications for the city to use as it reviews applications for large users, for example. It gets much more detailed than this plan would be about what type of things we'll look at to approve those or deny them. But the priorities and stuff are all consistent as far as who gets water first, second, third, and that's actually consistent with state law as well.
And we do reference the water supply plan in the ordinance with regards to water conservation in the event of emergencies and the priorities that are identified within the water conservation plan. Or, excuse me, the water supply plan.
So council, how do you guys want to approach this? Should we just take turns firing different questions out?
as we
until
scroll through or whatever, yeah, whatever.
Well, I don't think we're going through the document necessarily
Why don't you
page by
just
page.
start with your
So-
questions and.
Yeah, I mean, just as a point of reference, I'm looking at page 33 of the PDF plan. And just one thing that caught my eye when it looks at the table under the trout stream, one of our mitigation plans is to increase conservation. I just, like, what are some things we would do to increase conservation that would affect that?
Well, we already do things like odd even watering, but you might
Okay.
further restrict. Oh, I'm sorry. I was saying, we already do things like odd even watering, but you could go further with, more restricted watering, 1 or 2 days a week,
Okay.
that type of thing. Generally, you focus on non-essential uses when you're talking, trying to promote conservation.
So it would just be expanding on things that we're already doing,
Most
is
likely,
what you're
yeah.
saying, okay.
Yeah.
On that, excuse me. Is it cool if I jump in? 'Cause it's on the
Yeah,
same
go ahead,
page.
let's,
Yeah, no, so on that same page, just underneath, under the aquifer one, and maybe this was one of the ones that you emailed me about as I'm thinking about it, but we don't have it checked of risk assessed through the proximity piece for the aquifer. Would we want to consider checking that box since we're going to be doing aquifer testing, or maybe, like, how does that tie to this plan, and is that a potential risk?
It actually probably could be checked because some of the analysis done by our hydrogeologists did look at monitoring, well, they're not monitoring wells, but they're other wells within 5 miles. But we don't have any pure observation wells other than the Newmarket well, which has shown no change. It's been dead flat since we put it in.
Yeah.
terms of-
No,
so-
and
So far from the other wells.
And I read this as it's, this is the risk that we've assessed it through, and we haven't technically maybe checked that box yet, but it seems like we will be checking that box potentially based on what the recommendations or guidance is by the DNR. and-
We expect that we probably will be doing some sort of a pumping test as part of our appropriation permit amendment, and that will require monitoring whether we install a new well or use an existing well that we temporarily take out of service as a monitoring well. So we'll be recording, and we'll also probably monitor some nearby wells to see if there's an impact during that pumping test. So depending on the outcome of that, well, it would be checked either way then, now, after we've actually done it. To
Right.
this point, we haven't.
Right.
I have a question as it relates to page 40, where it's talking about the short-term emergency demand reduction potential.
One moment,
Yeah.
okay?
Well, so I see where residential would drop from, 290,000 to 112,000. But for commercial industrial, it's such a slight drop off. I'm just curious what the
It's actually the
rationale is.
reverse. What the table is telling you is the demand reduction potential. So we think you could drop usage by 112,000 gallons per day for residential, drop industrial usage by 425,000 gallons a day. So
Okay.
it's the flip.
That's brilliant. I didn't even catch that before, the way that you just read that now.
So that's what
Yeah.
I was.
So commercial, industrial, institutional could be reduced all the way down to 25,000, technically,
You're gonna wanna keep a vet clinic open, maybe a gas there's gonna be some if you can.
Sure.
So it's not, you wouldn't drop to zero, but the cuts are far bigger in those in the commercial industrial category than they are in residential.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. I guess, well, I mean, it makes sense, but I still would like to understand, I mean, just because the numbers are so big. So 425,000 is based on what?
I mean, it's essentially Niagara stopping production.
It's Niagara stopping production.
That's equivalent to that number. Now, it may not necessarily be that, but that's the equivalent in terms
Okay.
of scale. We don't have currently 450,000 gallons per day of industrial commercial usage. So
Okay.
one of the things we were requested was to reflect a significant user. We chose data that we have based on a current applicant to reflect in the plan. So under, an extreme emergency where we just don't have the water or we're ordered to cut those types of things, that's the demand reduction potential. We think there may be other businesses that would also be asked to curtail usage, maybe leisure, manufacturing, if there's other ones, but there'd be some essential ones that you'd probably want to still have. So
Sure.
there's going to be, you can't cut to zero.
So, okay, so let me ask this way. If we were in a water crisis and we had to put in some heavy restrictions on water, would Niagara still be able to operate and pump water and still sell it out?
It really depends on what the crisis is.
But do we have the ability to say no to that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Okay, that was kind of what I was going after.
That was one of the clarifications that I was gonna talk about, is that residential is 38% decrease, and then 94% for industrial. And with 49 businesses listed in the area, in the city, it would be 510 gallons per day is all that commercial and industrial would be allowed to use. So,
On average.
On
depending
average.
how,
yeah.
there's going to be, these are all on average.
Yep.
There's going to be certain businesses you want a gas station running, you might want a vet clinic or funeral home or something.
So would it make sense to break that out then between, industrial versus commercials? Getting more granular, I guess, instead of just a row that clumps them all together, to divvy it out
So
differently?
we
or-
populated the DNR's template, but the council, if it chose to, could certainly request more.
I would recommend no,
Yeah.
because the myriad of possibilities is large. And the more we want to assign a level of priorities, but the specifics will need to be dependent upon the circumstances at the time. I would not recommend getting more granular, but that's council's determination.
No, I mean, and I don't want to, I'm not suggesting, or I don't think we are suggesting, making it more complicated, but I think it doesn't make sense to treat everything the same. Now, I wouldn't say we list out, gas stations get this amount, restaurants get this amount, whatever gets this amount, but maybe in my brain, it's a significant industrial user, water user does this, the rest of the businesses and/or industrial, institutional, whatever, get this. So
There,
There should be some.
some
text-
differentiation.
in the
yeah.
text at the top of the page, the first sentence says, water used for human needs at hospitals, nursing homes, and similar types of facilities should be designated high priority to be maintained in an emergency. And that's certainly what we would follow without going, without going, I'm gonna move this thing. Without going into business names and locations and things that, so I think there's, it's stated as, it's part of the template, but it's certainly what we would follow if we got into a situation like that.
I guess I would want it somewhere said that if we're in a water emergency, and I don't know how we define that water emergency, but I just don't like the idea of, at the same time being in a water emergency, pumping water and selling it off. So I don't know how we do that, how we document that in the plan, if that's what the rest of the council feels as well.
Could it be designated if a business uses less than this amount? Or if you use more than this amount, then it's tiered that way?
Well, I think if, depending on, if it's an emergency that requires that kind of cut, the first place you're gonna go is to your largest users. If they can operate at 10%, maybe there's room to keep some others. I'm not sure that's true. They're probably more of a, if they cut too much, why bother running? They gotta, all they say. But I don't know those details of how they operate, and we weren't specifically thinking about how any particular business or industry would respond to this. More in generalities of, you can't cut all of it, but you could cut substantially. If we're in that kind of a situation, there's probably not gonna be much choice of, we want you to dial back 10%. It's gonna be something broke, and we can't provide water, especially that much, if that makes sense.
No, and I hate to, I don't want to, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this in the best way possible, not kicking the can, but, I mean, I think these are all, I mean, we can, I guess, what, the intent, the timing, what is the best approach to addressing this? I think, I mean, we could continue to go through a variety of different questions. I don't know if I will feel comfortable, voting to approve this yet without, seeing what some of these changes might be, or even getting more of that information. So would it make sense to, I hate punting on crap too. I mean, it feels like we're not doing our job, but I
Well-
also do feel like we're doing our job by getting more information, asking more questions, having a more thoughtful discussion. And I'm not trying to imply this is not a thoughtful discussion, because we can make it as thoughtful as we want. But just having some, I mean, I would like to look into, how do we differentiate between some of these different things and have that discussion, but I guess
Like in a workshop setting or something.
like a workshop,
Well-
or does it make sense to make some of these changes? See, I don't know if I feel comfortable approving it anyway, but let's hypothetically say then we approve it the way it is, and then we come back to it and we keep revising it. That seems more work and more energy and maybe inefficient to chip away at it versus trying to tackle some of these issues just more at once versus, I don't know, I guess I don't know what other people's preferences are to doing it.
If I could, as I'm listening to the conversation, I'm a little unclear what additional information that the council is looking for. And I would also like to suggest that as you look to refine the plan, you also don't want to tie the hands of future councils who at that time may need to make decisions. I guess maybe a question for right now would be a question of the city attorney as to how much discretion does a future, and I think the intent is that you want to give a future council leverage, but we may be working harder than we need to because a future council may have all the leverage and discretion that they need to make the decisions they need to make at the time. And I guess that would be a good question for the city attorney.
Right, I think as long as, okay. I think as long as the authorization is broad enough, it will not bind you or future councils. The more you get into specific requirements, it may be more difficult depending on the type of emergency that you're facing. So sometimes you're better not tying your hands or the hands of another council in providing guidance and giving more discretion.
Well, again, I'm going to echo a little bit of what Josh said. I don't know that I'm terribly comfortable voting on this tonight either, and without seeing something that clearly states in black and white, we can restrict the sale of water. And maybe those terms and which, what are the different triggers to where we would actually go to Niagara and say you have to shut down or something like that. I don't know. I think we should have that ability, and it should be spelled out specifically in our water supply plan. So if that's something that we want to talk about at a future meeting, at a workshop or something like that, I'm perfectly fine with that. That was my biggest overriding concern with all of this. I mean, most of the stuff that's in here is kind of almost logic administrative way, but I think that's something I'd like to see singled out. Does anyone else have questions? I mean, we can kind of go through different questions and kind of get a map of the things we would want clarified.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, and I shared some of the questions that I have, and some of them were answered. Some of them I think we still just need to talk through. But it gets me back to the question I had at the beginning too. Where does the significant user agreement tie into this? And maybe there is some teeth and some more clarity in there of doing some of that stuff that you were talking about. And if that's clear, and then we tie it back, and that's where I'm wondering how it's all tied together. So if we don't need to, spell it out in here because it wouldn't make sense to, because of everything that Andrea just said, then, and we can keep it in the significant user agreement, contract, whatever, and the ordinance, and we have the protections in place and we can do it, great. But in my brain, that's just where it's just hard to piece it together, and I didn't have, a side-by-side, have the ordinance here, have the water supply plan here, the agreement here, and actually kind of talk through it. And I think that would be super helpful to kind of just see how it all ties together and make sure that there are as little gaps as possible. Maybe there are none, and maybe we're completely good. But I think that would be helpful for me anyway. And I guess, I don't know if I care if I tie the hands of future councils either necessarily, because I see how easy it is for us to make changes anyway. So assuming that we can, not massively screw it up, somebody can, I mean, we could, I'm sure. But, we could also fix it. And depending on the time or the situation, I think future councils could say, well, these guys are a bunch of idiots anyway, and, completely get rid of it. But
So you're looking for where your authority to restrict usage is encoded.
I think that's one,
That's
yeah.
my
That-
position, yeah.
And my understanding is it's already an existing ordinance.
It's in the ordinance. It doesn't, it just says the city council can decide.
Okay. I mean, I'm not gonna look to read the ordinance right now, but
Whenever
Kinda
the
like-
city council determines it's in the public interest, the city council may by resolution further limit water use, times, hours during which water may be used from the city's water supply by giving notice by publication or by posting.
and what if Niagara objects to that and says it's causing them harm and tries to sue the city? I mean, I don't know.
Any entity could make the same claim at any time under the current ordinance.
True, but Niagara also has a history of taking cities to court. I'm not saying it's.
They actually do not. That they actually do not.
Well, they do, and I'm not trying to really get in the middle of that, Tom. I guess my point is, I'm not comfortable with that not being included in the water supply plan. So even if it's just a small thing to make me happy somewhere, maybe we can insert that somewhere in the water supply plan.
Maybe a reference
We-
to,
We can certainly take a look at that and bring something back at the next council.
Thank you. That was the biggest point I had. I mean, there's other things that I think we need to talk about. I mean, I'd like to revisit the water rate structure. I don't know that that's necessarily something that has to do directly with the water supply plan, because we do that separately anyway. But really, those are the two things that were in my mind, so.
Are we left vulnerable at all with not making updates or having a kind of in pending status? I mean, just from, I'm guessing we're not, but
You
maybe
have a
it's a really
current-
stupid question.
You
but-
have a current official water supply plan
Okay,
that
so
is
we're covered
satisfactory for
for-
the applications you've made.
Okay. Josh, do you have any other points you want to hit on?
No, I think, like I said, I sent in a bunch of different, just thoughts, comments, whatever. And there are pieces of, especially the updates. So like, that's where I was just like, Harks, like the updates I do think were great. And we updated some of the data in here. It reflects that trends maybe are starting to change a little bit. So I think, even taking a closer look at that, I do really think spelling out the differences in the types of business, industrial, commercial, and institutional, and whatever. I think would be helpful, especially if there's only one massively huge industrial user. I don't think the rest maybe should be clumped into that group, or they're separated out, and then the rest are any other industrial, commercial, or business, or whatever users. And I don't know how you do that well.
Or definition in table 18, perhaps, something
Yes.
like that.
What page was table 18?
44,
something.
maybe? Try 44,
Page 40.
40.
Yeah.
I was close.
Yeah, but, well, no, and thank you too for the clarification, because it looked like it only got reduced by 25, and the other one got reduced by 168 or 78, whatever it is, 78. I don't know, I feel like we have time. I feel like this is not something we need to rush unless others disagree, which if.
This
it-
was a council request,
Yeah.
so I don't see it being urgent.
So to the rest of the council members, is this something you want to have a workshop on? Is this something that you want, how do you want to proceed?
I would love, I'm an idiot when it comes to this stuff. I'm trying to pretend like I know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about, but I know nothing.
I
as
would
of 7
love
months
to
ago.
see this, the ordinance, the significant user, all side by side, so we can see how they work together and see if there's any gaps that we need to fix, or make certain that all of our ducks are in a row, so that maybe it's not Niagara that comes in, maybe it's another large water user for something, or whatever, another company that's gonna use a large amount of water. We need to make certain that it's done correctly now, instead of saying in 10 years we should have done that.
So, just looking at the calendar, we have a workshop scheduled on our calendar for the next council meeting. Do we actually have anything for that workshop, Tom?
This could be the item very easily.
Okay, let's plan on that, and then let's continue this item until the next meeting, and we can still have this as a general business item on that meeting.
Can we also go over the rate structures?
You want to do the rate structures at the next meeting?
Can we just talk about it at the workshop along with this?
Yeah?
What does the council want to know about the rate structure so that we can be prepared for that discussion?
Well, personally, I've never, in all the times that we've talked about water rates, we've never talked about conservation, or at least it hasn't been something that's been of my mind when we've been talking about it. It's always been, how do we lower water rates or keep the water rates from rising too much, because that's been the narrative for the last 10 years since we've got the water treatment center. So I guess I'd like to understand better how we factor in conservation into that, because I saw that was it should be part of the process.
Oh, God, good comment. Because, not that the other ones weren't good comments. No, there was a spot at the beginning too. And sorry, not taken away, but the water conservation section, part 3.
Page are you on?
This is like 10 basic steps for completing the 10-year water supply plan, page 7.
Yep.
The water conservation section may need discussion with the water department, council, planning commission if your community doesn't already have an active water conservation. I mean, just to understand what is ours, what could it be, what are others, and maybe that fits into the tiered rate structure, or the rate structure piece, but that got me thinking of that section. I thought that'd be a good idea for a workshop at some point.
And then Kate, was there anything that you might have had? Okay. So that'll be the plan for the workshop, and then, I'll make a motion to continue. I don't know if is a motion needed to continue the discussion on the water supply plan for the next meeting?
Yes.
If so, I just made that motion.
Second.
Motion by myself, second by Kate, all in favor?
Aye.
Matters continued. Next item, resignation of Councilmember Schenke. So the question here is, what do we want to do with that vacancy?
Good riddance. I mean, he's online. He's online, so that's why I said it. Completely joking.
So
Can he be unmuted, or does he? You don't have to unmute him. I would say he can't unmute himself, right? So we can say whatever we want. All right, excellent. Just kidding, Bryce.
I know in the past, he only has, what, a year and a half left?
Yep.
I know in the past, we've opened it for applications and we've interviewed. That is what I would be in favor of.
So normally I am in favor of that, although I'm not in this case. We're gonna have more Niagara votes and more Niagara stuff, and we're gonna have more Niagara stuff in front of us, and I don't know how we find a candidate that can actually participate in that discussion that isn't already swayed one way or another. I think we'd be opening the risk of someone coming in to a council spot and already having an agenda one way or another. And I have some concerns with that. And I think there's probably some people we could directly appoint if we wanted to. Now, is that something?
So to be devil's advocate, you're afraid to let the public come in and apply, but we want to appoint somebody. Well, we could have a hidden agenda because we want to appoint this one person. I'm just trying to be devil's advocate because it might come up as a question.
Oh, I'm absolutely positive it'll come up as a question. So my thought was take someone from the planning commission, someone that's already familiar with everything, that's had to take an impartial role on this previously.
That's not a bad idea.
I also think, though, this is probably a big enough thing, we should have a full council with Amanda here to really make a final decision on that. But, I don't know, I've always been for posting it and doing interviews. I think it's gonna be impossible to find someone objective in this case. So that's my concern, and I can easily be backed off that if someone.
No, I absolutely agree.
differently.
I mean, that's absolutely the concern, whether it's somebody, because ultimately, if we go through the appointment process, no matter how we appoint, I mean, we can interview 14 people, 13 of them could be on one side of the issue, the one person could be on the other, we appoint the one. I mean, we're gonna get pegged with.
We'll get killed no matter what.
Right, so I mean, it really doesn't matter. But, so I absolutely hear what you're saying. In an ideal space, I'd pick my neighbor 2 houses down. I already talked to him on the way. He's super neutral on so many different things. Smart person that would be willing to listen to both sides. But I mean, I just don't know how you find somebody truly. But, with the interview process, asking the right questions, getting a good enough vibe, having that discussion, I think we could do a pretty decent job with that. And if ultimately, at the end of the day, we're like, holy crap, there's no way, then we could default to, even having a backup process too, I'd be open to. But, who knows, maybe nobody wants to even jump on.
That's possible.
Are we allowed to be able to do the interview process, and if we don't care for any of them, then go to an appointment?
Absolutely. There's no direction by state law as to how you appoint somebody to fill a vacancy.
Kristen Forsman just nodded at me saying she wanted to be appointed right now. Got it. No.
All right, I mean, obviously, we don't have to decide now. I mean, like I said, I really think we ought to have a full council with Amanda here to have this, or to make a decision how we proceed. We still have to decide whether we're accepting the resignation or not. If we are, and someone wants to make a motion, we can do that.
Motion to accept 2328, accepting council members' resignation.
It's a motion by Kate.
I'll second that. Can we have a little bit more, or can we discuss before or after the vote? I don't really care.
Second by Josh, and then further discussion before we vote.
Yeah, no, I mean, so do we have any upcoming votes, like, I'm thinking sense of urgency or timing of things that we need, that supermajority, that the bigger thing more than just a simple majority? Is there anything that we are at risk for without having that fifth person quickly? If we don't make a decision now to get something posted, to get the process moving, I'm just worried about that.
The one thing I can think of is the zoning application by Purple.
Purple Rain.
Purple Rain?
Which would require a supermajority vote.
Yeah, we already did that.
So nothing big pending?
You never know what can come up.
Right.
We'll have a city-led, or so city-initiated public improvement project involving special assessments. And I think that requires a 4/5 or, extra majority. So the timing of that, I suppose, we haven't had the improvement hearing, so that's probably at least a month away.
Okay.
To give you an idea of time frame.
helps.
So Andrea, I couldn't hear your response remotely here.
Sorry,
Um,
my response was a non-issue.
So with a 4/5, my recollection is under state statute, if you only have 4 council people and you have a vacancy at that time, all of those measures go against 4 as the total
Correct.
council until that vacancy is filled.
That's correct.
And then, just for clarification, tied votes on most all things, we don't just trump to Mr. Mayor here, right? If it's a tied vote, it's most things, if it's tied, it doesn't pass, essentially.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Correct. So that's the biggest risk, is if you think that there's going to be the likelihood of even splits. So it requires prognostication on the part of the council on any items. That would be the biggest risk.
You comfortable voting then, since we have a motion and a second? All right, all in favor of resolution 2328? Aye.
I,
All right, motion passes. We need to pick an acting mayor.
I would like to pick Josh Berg.
I'll second it. Motion by Kate, second by myself, all in favor?
I,
Aye. Josh is the new acting mayor. How many times have you filled that role?
Twice, this is only the second time, I think.
Is it? I thought
Yeah.
it was third or
I don't know.
All right. On to reports. Anything for administration, Tom?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Public Works, we have our Public Works guy here.
Got nothing.
Nothing?
Was busy.
You just showed up for, well, you had people here. Yeah, yeah, all right. Police Department.
Come on.
We're hanging in there. We're trying to get staffed up, but we're doing okay.
Okay. Engineering.
I have no report.
Community Development.
I was informed today by the building official that Quick Trip is 2 weeks ahead of schedule.
Hey. Woo! All right. Anything for parks? Probably not. Since, CCEC.
At our last meeting, we discussed fire rescue days. We have a band coming in after the parade. We'll have music in the park and some food trucks that we will invite in and some activities for the kids.
All right.
Do we need to increase the budget at all?
I'm never against that.
Can we mute Tom? No, I mean, realistically.
Realistically, the band is, I mean, last year without anything, we just had the parade, no inflatables. We were approximately $2,000 under our budget. We have inflatables coming, we have a band coming, so we will probably exceed our budget by some.
However, we also received $1,000 donation from the Chamber of Commerce to assist with civic and community events. So while we might exceed the expense line item, our revenues are greater than expected as well.
Can I just comment personally, and not speaking on behalf of anybody else on the council unless they want to, I mean, not that I give you a blank check, but man, like, I would just say, I think you would have you have the support of myself. I think we, as a city, do a really good job budgeting in so many different areas. We end up sweeping money at the end of the year, most years, almost every year that I've been on council, we have. And I think this is one area that if you happen to overspend and you happen to go above and beyond, I think there'll probably be a lot of grace and permission to do so, even if, right, it's not in the budget, so, yeah.
Thank you.
I'm going to hold you to that, Josh, during budget season.
You
Yeah,
got it.
you know,
Put
that
a
was-
special spot in the box.
That was just Josh. Other committee reports, there's nothing for scale. Next scale meeting's in 2 weeks. Scale execs next week. Tom, do you have anything for service delivery?
I do not.
Okay. Has anyone, since Bryce left, has anyone gone to the,
I went to the last one and reported
did.
on it the last
That's
meeting,
right.
but we should think about that as, who's that gonna default to?
yeah, well, I guess we gotta figure out who's the next council person is, but when is the next meeting?
Thursday the 11th, and I have it on my calendar already, so
So you're gonna go?
I guess I'll go
All
to
right.
that one, and then we can figure it out.
Sounds good. Any discussion by council? Or motions?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Kate, second by myself. All in favor?
Aye.
Means adjourned.